Its obsession with Brexit is its now inability to accept the truth, which is self-evident to most people in this country, that Brexit was a mistake.
Our unelected Foreign Secretary, former Prime Minister David Cameron, dropped a spectacular clanger this week when talking to the Peston Show. Have a listen.
If this had come up when you were PM, would you have gone for this policy?
Well, we had a totally different situation because we had a situation where you could return people directly to France. Now, I'd love that situation to be the case again. That's the most sensible thing. People land on a beach in Kent, you take them straight back to France, you therefore break the model of the people's smugglers.
So shouldn't you be trying to get that?
Well, that's not available at the moment. It's simply not possible
because
at the
of Brexit?
moment. Well, because of the situation we're in, because of the attitude of others and all the rest of it. It's not available at the moment. So you've got a choice. Do nothing. That is the Keir Starmer choice. Talk about it, talk about faster processing, talk about this, but ultimately do nothing. Or you take innovative action to say, if you come to Britain illegally on a small boat, you're not going to stay. So therefore, don't come. That's the choice.
So let's just do a little recap, shall we? Our Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, David Cameron, offered us a vote on Brexit. He lost, and he deserved to lose probably because the campaign was so dreadful, and scuppered off to hide in his shed, made a fortune from Greensill and got into all sorts of wrangles because he was lobbying the government. And he then, surprised us all by coming back and being our Foreign Secretary. And yesterday he finally told the truth, presumably because he was asked to put his hand on his heart. And he said the reason that we have the small boats crisis now is because of Brexit. I mean, he didn't exactly say that, but he certainly inferred that, because when he was Prime Minister, this couldn't have happened because we were in the Dublin Convention. And then having said that, he obviously got in a bit of trouble. And then this morning he tried to wriggle out of it by saying that he didn't mean it and that it's not relevant because he's maintaining that the Dublin Convention no longer exists. And that is not true. The European Union are certainly amending and improving the Dublin Convention in light of all of the issues with the uptick in refugees and asylum seekers because of the troubles in Ukraine and the Middle East. But the Dublin Convention is still there. There has to be an agreement within the European nations to sort out this difficult problem. Another thing which happened today was that David Cameron's former Director of Strategy, Lord Cooper, spoke to Matt Chorley on the Times radio, and he was asked what he would vote. For some reason, he doesn't have a vote in the general election. I'm not sure why, but he said that if he could vote, he would vote to get the Tories out. And that's heartening to hear, especially as I'm very much backing the Stop the Tories .vote initiative, which is running at the moment for the local elections. If you look it up, stopthetories.vote, it will give you the best person to vote for in the local elections and in the PCC and mayoral elections next week on May the 2nd. So do look that up, put in your postcode and decide who to vote for, because we definitely want to give the Tories a good trashing. But even Tories themselves, or former Tories, want to give the Tories a good trashing too. And I think that what is going on is that the various factions within the Conservative Party have really lost the plot now, that they don't actually know what they can agree on or what they're fighting for. We did have Andrea Jenkins on GB News wanting to go further to the right, and we certainly know Suella Braverman and others want to do that. And then you've got the more moderate One Nation Tories who are largely excluded, even though they're a fairly large group. And the Conservatives have definitely made themselves unelectable. And the question is, really, how many of them will survive after the next election. And that seems to be the central core of the conversation. We're all here just waiting for the general election, and Rishi Sunak is pushing the can down the road because he wants to be Prime Minister for as long as possible for his legacy, which is very depressing, given that we'd all like to be able to get on with our lives and not be fed up and moaning with this incompetent government. Anyway, have a listen to this clip from Times Radio.
If I had a vote, I would vote for whichever party was best placed to defeat the Conservatives where I live. Though where I live is a very, very safe Tory seat, and it probably wouldn't make any difference.
But it's interesting for someone, it's not just, been a Tory voter for a long time. You've worked for them in the highs and the lows, trying to get them into power, trying to keep them into power. How difficult is that decision then to vote or, to do anything you can to get them out?
Because I think the Conservative Party has lost entirely its sort of unifying purpose. And I think this is a perception that the electorate shares as well. It's very hard to make sense of what the Conservative Party believes in or stands for anymore. It seems to me to have dissolved into a series of unruly factions, each of which has a very different view of what the Conservative Party should be and how the Conservative Party could win. And it needs to resolve that question. I think it extraordinarily rapidly after the Brexit referendum, it basically turned into an English nationalist party, and its preoccupation with immigration has risen to the fore. Its obsession with Brexit, its now inability to accept the truth, which is self-evident to most people in this country, that Brexit was a mistake, has kind of trapped it. And the other there's a kind of structural problem they have as well, which is that the Get Brexit Done coalition that won them the big majority in 2019 is unstable in terms of economic issues, because it's the binding together of the traditional working class Labour bloc of voters who are pro-Brexit and a traditional Conservative heartland which is pro-Brexit. And those two parts of their coalition have very different views on economic issues. So it's very hard to put forward an economic policy which holds that coalition together. And that's why they keep going back to cultural dividing lines to try to hold it together.
So you move away from the economics because you can't be a low tax, high spend party. So you move off to culture issues and talk about something else. It was absolutely fascinating and slightly alarming for the Conservatives. Andrew Cooper, Baron Cooper of Windrush, and Katie.
5 years. So yes, you're absolutely correct in what you say, but I think that still provides quite a lot of maximisation, as it were, and issues arising. And I absolutely agree. We have a massive free trade agreement. That's what we've got. That's what we're going to make the most of. And there'll be plenty of things to discuss under that. But it's not about reopening, we're not suddenly going to reopen free movement or go back into the customs union or any of those things. That is absolutely not what this is about.
So there you go, a quick reminder of what's going on. David Cameron, as Foreign Secretary, has to have collective responsibility in the Cabinet to continue their line that Brexit is here to stay and we're never going to go back into the single market and the customs union, despite the fact that you heard his former Director of Strategy say that Brexit is a total failure. And of course, for the economy, we need to get rid of as much of Brexit as possible in order to bring growth back. There is no other way of getting growth, even though Liz Truss is trying to tell you it's from reducing taxes. That just isn't true. But this is the party game that we're playing at the moment. The Labour Party are shadowing the Conservatives, and that's normal. That's an electoral strategy. And I'm sure that once they get into government, because we know full well that actually the Labour Party is totally united on Europe. Most of them, nearly all of them, vast majority of the parliamentary party, the PPCs and the members and most of the trade unions are actually pro-EU. Yes, there's a few leavers, but they are very much a minority. And this means that we will begin to move in that direction as soon as they win power, especially as they've committed to a veterinary agreement. Today, there was a good article from Peter Foster explaining how much better it will be for our economy just if we agree a veterinary agreement, just because it gets rid of a big layer of red tape. I'll put a link to an archived copy of that article in the text below. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this video. If you haven't subscribed, do so, and also comment below and let me know what you think. Afternoon nap time.